talked about this sort of autoimmune, autoinflammatory type of symptoms, the fatigue. And we got to remember, these are systemic. This is full body. So it could be joints, it could be enthesitis, which is your tissues, it could be eyes, could be skin. So you have to kind of look at this as an larger than just a joint. And I think that's really important. We talked about the injury and mistaking that, or the growing pains, and the fact that you likely will get sent to different specialists, and that's okay. But our goal is to help you with the communication at each of those subspecialties. So that's part of the project that we're working on, is in the journey. Let's say you go to a physical therapist. I'm just using it as an example. What are some of the things you should be asking? What are some of the things that you could be proactive about? Why am I here? What is this therapy achieving? We learned a lot in those early interviews that we've done for this project, where the families were telling me this, and I say, well, the child would say, oh, well, I didn't think it was doing anything, and so I don't know if we're going to continue. And so I asked them, well, what did the physical therapist tell you to expect? And they both looked at each other and were like, we never asked. And I said, and they're like, I never even thought to ask that. So I think those are the kind of things that we're hoping to help with, right, and address as we go on this journey. Rochelle, I'm going to turn it back to you. We're just to kind of touch on anything else that you think are important points to mention as we're talking about this detour and these certain points in your journey, things for, people to look for, or any communication barriers that you wanted to point out, just kind of bringing us home here on this episode.
I think communication also includes your child. So, I think you need to be mindful as a parent that you always include your child in that communication, in that back and forth with the doctors. It ultimately is about your child. So even at preschool age, they should be able to point to what hurts. They should be able to ask questions if they have questions. I think, you just have to take into account their age and their development level. The other thing is that labs only tell us part of the story. So sometimes you need to go into it deeper. And I think it's okay to ask, like you were saying, why do I have to do an MRI, or why do I have to do this swallow study? Like, what the heck? Why are you saying that? Like sometimes we just feel like that person's in charge. I'm going to do what they're asking me to do. But I think the more information you have as a parent, it's also then easier for you to explain to your child, this is about to happen. This is what you're going to expect. This is how long, it might take. Because you are kind of that go-between with the child and, between the child and the specialists. I remember very distinctly at one point, I thought you get a diagnosis, you get maybe some medicine, maybe some therapy, and it's fixed. Like, that is how I went into it. I was so excited when we got a diagnosis. And that's because we had been waiting so long to try to figure it out. I remember one day thinking, okay, we've gone from pills to shots to infusion room, and now I see no end in sight. And I remember this one day in particular where I asked the doctor, could I talk to you in private? So my son was in the infusion room, still getting his infusion with the nurses, and we went into a different room. And I think it's okay to do that, to get clarity, because you can be a little less guarded when your child's not in the room. And so that's part of the communication piece too. I cannot even begin to tell you what a changing point that was for me in a mental way. So I remember sitting with the doctor. I literally asked all the things I was scared of, all the things I still didn't understand. We probably spoke for a good 20, 30 minutes. And I said, how long is this going to take? And I think she thought it was kind of a crazy question. But she said, you need to give me at least 5 years. And I was like, what? I had no idea she was going to say that. I thought months, maybe a year. You need to give me at least 5 years. And I said, why that long? And she says, well, look how long it took you to get the diagnosis. We are chasing the disease. If I never would have asked to sit down and talk to her without my child, I never would have gotten that information. So I think that's really important that families feel like they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to warn them. You need to let them be able to say to you, could we schedule a time? But you may need that time to ask those questions without your child.
Very, very good point. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And my eyes went, woo, when you said 5 years, because I can only imagine what went through your head.
Yes.
When you heard that.
It made me stop hounding her as much.